righty, well, thank you so much for meeting with us this afternoon. I'm Megan Ramirez. I'm an Education Abroad Coordinator here at WVU. I've met with a few of you already, but if you're interested in any Education Abroad program here at WVU, I'm happy to work with you. And the semester in Strasbourg program is a really fantastic opportunity that Dr. Hagen will tell you all about. Amanda, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Amanda Morgan, the real one, apparently. I am a faculty-led coordinator, program specialist. So I work with Joe to kind of create the budget with our partners in France to make this program possible. So essentially I pay the bills and do a little bit of the logistical errors. And then Joe?
Well, the first slide, okay, wait a second. Okay, share screen. We have a set of slides to go through. This is a picture of Strasbourg. You can all see the slide, right? This is a picture of the center of Strasbourg. It's on a tributary to the Rhine River. It's a beautiful medieval city. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. In the distant background, you can see a very tall spire. That's part of the Strasbourg Cathedral. I've been involved with Strasbourg, but Strasbourg is your typical study abroad program. Megan, were you going to cover this or do you want me to?
That was me.
Okay.
So this is just a slide of why we think you should study abroad. So obviously a big one is to travel the world. As you can see, Strasbourg is really kind of central and you'll get to go to all these different locations. It's in the middle there, and then how quickly you can go to Paris and Belgium and the Netherlands and Switzerland. And these could all be weekend trips for you while you're over there. You can explore new cultures and broaden your worldview. You can also earn credits for your adventure. So as much as we all want to get the experience and travel, credits are what we're here for, right? Like we want those credits to work with our degree. That way we can graduate on time and get our experiences with our credits. And then you can grow your professional potential. A lot of employers are looking for people that have intercultural competency. And if you can get along with many cultures, that's always a plus in the workplace. And then you can develop a global network. You're going to meet people from all over the world. You keep those connections, and that may help you in the future.
Okay, thank you, Amanda. So, who should apply to this program? It's actually open to all WVU majors across the colleges. I will admit an international studies bias. I was the previous director of international studies for about 15 years. And this was a program that was developed initially for international studies majors, but now it's broadened. And so it fits with all majors at WVU. The curriculum involves courses. Excuse me for a second, I'm gonna reduce this. You take, there's a wide variety of courses. So let me say up front, the courses are offered at the University of Strasbourg, except for two that are offered at the Chateau. But there are a wide variety of courses on European politics, history. They do a lot of cross-cultural studies, as well as international business. And there's an option to take French language classes. The way to think about this program, it's a program on European affairs. It's kind of a Europe's wide program. So you get a variety of courses. One way, if you're not in internet, all these would count towards international studies very easily. They also work for political science. But if you're not an international studies major, what you can do is you can get an international studies minor, probably with one course at WVU and then the rest on the semester. So for non-majors, this gives you a minor that kind of internationalizes your other major. The third item is you receive academic credit as a full-time student at a major French university. The University of Strasbourg is one of the strongest universities in France. It's a large university, but it's not overwhelming. It's right in the city. Some of its buildings are UNESCO World Heritage Site now. You have two options. You can attend the School of Management and Business. What's interesting about EM, it's called, is that they have interdisciplinary classes, and they have a wide variety of stuff. It's pretty flexible in the kinds of courses they have. Again, it's a management course, so you do a lot of stuff on cross-cultural management. But in many ways, that's cross-cultural diplomacy. They do EU studies, and then they have business classes. But they also have classes like on wine growing in Alsace. Alsace is a major wine producing area. They have a course on kind of quality of life. I'm forgetting, but it's kind of the European lifestyle, environmentally conscious, that type of thing. It's the first time I've done this in this presentation in a while, so I'm forgetting things. But the course is called Economics of Happiness. And it's a really interesting course, and it's kind of a European culture class. So there's EM, it's very flexible. The other program doesn't have quite as many courses, but it's the Institute for Political Studies, IEP. And they have a heavy amount of courses on European integration, European politics and history, as well as courses that aren't even on Europe. Again, they're not as many, but especially if you're a political science major, this is an option to consider. So the two are different, but they offer good choices. The third item on that is this program is approved by and accredited by the College of Business and Economics, and the B&E advisor will work with you if you're a B&E major. But they, as far as I can tell, they have far more courses in international business, finance, and marketing than you can get at WVU. My impression about B&E is a very good curriculum, but it's mainly domestic. So this is an opportunity to internationalize your B&E degree and do it with a minor in international studies. There's also an additional option of enrolling in French language classes. They are taught at EM. So if you're not fluent, but you want to add to your French, you can do that. They have an introductory class that kind of teaches you useful survival French, if you haven't had any French. And they kind of take you around the city, and it's a pretty good activity. So, let me emphasize, these classes are taught in English. But the really good thing is they're not taught by Americans. And so, as was mentioned, you want to broaden your perspective. Well, the best way to do that, unless you're fluent in French, is to have courses taught in English by French and German professors. And these are the same classes that they ordinarily teach at EM. Okay, but let me or at IEP. Let me mention the reason they teach classes in English is because they want to draw students from around the world, including the United States. And far more people around the world speak English than they do French. So they've developed this parallel English language program or set of classes taught in English. So you're getting the same classes, but the really good thing is you're getting a European perspective on culture, on politics, and so on. So it's a nice opportunity. And when you're on campus, you'll find, it's not just Americans. There are people from all over the world. And, even if you don't meet some of the people you meet will be French students, but the other ones will be from Africa, from East Asia, from throughout Europe. So that you make a lot of nice connections with that. So those are the courses. Okay.
Yeah. I wanted to say one thing on that. WVU has a unique relationship with this program and with the University of Strasbourg and SEPA, which you'll hear more about SEPA in a few. We are the school, not the school of record, but other schools in the US go through us to go through to Strasbourg. So not only are you going to be with the people that you go with from WVU, but University of Georgia, we've had people from Japan go through us. So you'll also have that core group of students as well to kind of connect with as well.
And I have a feeling I skipped a slide. I'm not quite used to doing this over Zoom, but the streamlined course registration, you work through the Office of Global Affairs. They do a great job. You get registered. You get registered for these classes before you leave. We know the people on the other side if there are issues. We know the global affairs people at IEP and also at EM, and so it's pretty good in terms of registering. And of course, all these courses, the credit transfers back to WVU. And WVU, no headaches about what meets what. And Professor Estep, the director of international studies, she's used to working with these classes, and so it all works out pretty smoothly. Okay, here are the courses, and forgive me, I guess I went a little bit too detailed earlier on. But what I did mention is there are two classes taught at the Chateau, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. The Chateau, that's where you live. And we have two WVU courses, okay, that are offered, INTS 360 and INTS 361. The EU and Contemporary Europe, I've got to fix the slide, but it's EU and Contemporary European Affairs. It's a course that I helped design with the French professors. It's not even taught at EM, but it focuses on issues, kind of the shocks that Europe's gone through in recent years, the Great Recession, the immigration crisis from the Middle East, Brexit, the Russian threat, headaches from the United States now. And so it's a pretty nifty class. You don't have to be a political scientist or international studies student to take it. Students do very well in the class. And the grade transfers back to WVU. The second one is taught by a German professor, Professor Wassenberg, and she's interested in kind of cross-border cooperation. And so this is a course kind of on European identity. And you're living on the border, you'd be living on the border between Germany and France in a province, Alsace, that has been bounced back and forth between Germany and France. These countries have, up until 1945, had fought wars over the centuries. And but what's happened, thankfully, since 1945 is European identities transformed. And what you've seen since that time is a huge amount of cooperation across the border, across the Rhine. And so this is an opportunity to learn something about, kind of at the regional and almost personal level, like buying your groceries from Germany as opposed to France. Learning about what goes on again at the regional level in Europe. So it's really kind of a unique course, and as I'll talk about, their excursions it allows you to understand the area that you're living in. And then, as I said before, you have a choice of classes at the University of Strasbourg. And forgive me for repeating, but again, the course is on EU integration, European politics, culture, and economy. You get a lot of stuff on Europe. And then the cross-cultural management and intercultural communication. If you're international studies, that's diplomacy. If you're business, that's management. These courses are kind of neat because you're in classes with students from around the world. And so, in the French, they teach their classes, they're kind of really group oriented. They're not as much lecture. And so you have great conversations with students from fundamentally different culture, talking about, how people interact with across different cultures. Then, of course, there are the business classes, marketing, finance, and business. And as I mentioned, IEP has classes also. And I think I went through the classes for B&E majors and the additional option. So the key thing is that I didn't talk about is the detail on the Strasbourg courses. And then you have 2 classes at WVU. The 2 classes at WVU are pretty good because they're 3-credit classes. And sometimes you get classes at Strasbourg that are 2 credits, some are 3 credits. And so it's kind of hard to patch together a schedule sometimes. And so having the 2 anchor classes at WVU, taught by WVU, not only they targeted for you, but also they kind of simplify your schedule. And frankly, students tend to do very well in those classes. So those are the courses. Are there any questions on that? And I hope I haven't confused you by kind of overlapping. Okay, I'll try not to do that again. Okay, the second feature, along with really good curriculum, being at the University of Strasbourg, is the Chateau. And the Chateau is a historic building. Okay, I've been going there for over 15 years. But it is our partners, SIPA, they own the building. They host wedding receptions there. The ground floor is very fancy, very historic and everything. Fortunately, in recent years, the upper floors, they've turned into dorms. And the dorms used to be pretty historic. They were kind of run down, but now they've all been refurbished. They're really quite nice. They're bigger than anything I had in college. But anyway, you live at the Chateau, okay? And as Amanda mentioned, they're WVU students, they're Georgia students, there are a number of other schools that are there. Tendency is everybody gets to be good friends. But in this program, okay, and part of the fee on the registration website is your housing, okay? And as I mentioned, the newly refurbished rooms. It's located in a beautiful park. You can Google this, do this on Google Maps, the Chateau de Portelez. There's a forest there you can hike through. There's great, you can jog along the Rhine, or you can just enjoy the park. And it's a beautiful setting, very safe setting. It's north of the city, just outside of a town called Robertso. I think it's like 3 miles from the center of the city. But so there are these rooms there. You live there. Each morning they serve a full European breakfast, which is very healthy, and that's included in the cost of the program. But it's fresh cheeses, fresh bread, fresh meat. And if you're strategic, what you do after you finish breakfast is go up and make a sandwich and tuck that in your backpack, and there's your lunch. But let me emphasize, it's very healthy food. Granola and fresh fruit. And they do that for students, but they also do it because they outside of the picture, there's a small hotel. And so that's for the hotel guests, and who are more often members of the European Parliament that's located in Strasbourg. So anyway, you also have access to kitchen facilities that are just for the students. There's a large kitchen. No one else uses it, just the students. There's a local supermarket within walking distance that you can buy your food and then put it in the cabinets and stuff like that. And so students, you save a lot of money on meals by eating at the Chateau regularly. There's a meal plan at the University of Strasbourg. Basically what it is since you're a University of Strasbourg student, they subsidize your meals. So you can get a full dinner at a university cafeteria for probably €3. So you'll spend a lot of time on campus. Well, there's inexpensive food there. The only thing to avoid is if you're in the tourist areas, food's very expensive. So, otherwise, you've got lots of options. We've been sending students on this program for over a dozen years, and they've not complained about the cost of meals. We used to charge them $1,500, and that was more than enough to pay for food, and so people spent it on other things. So we cut that out, and budget accordingly. But the other advantage at the Chateau is there's a really nice staff. They speak French, they speak German, they speak English. In fact, they're mainly Germans that own the Chateau, that run the Chateau. But they're very good with students. There's staff there. They provide support if you want to travel, if you have health issues, all the uncertainties you can run into and study abroad. You simply, you've got dedicated staff to help you out. And in an era of COVID and stuff, last year they had to shut the program down, and but you had people there to manage, help you get back to the United States, stuff like that. And so, if you have parents that are worried or whatever, there's a support staff there. When you arrive, if you go on the program, you'll fly into Frankfurt Airport, and they'll give you instructions about meeting a bus, and the bus will pick you up, which is nice because you're going to be heavily jet lagged. The bus will take everybody to the Chateau. You get a specific time to meet it and stuff like that. And then when you get to the Chateau, you have about a week to get settled, and they provide a full orientation program. They explain the Chateau, they explain Strasbourg, they explain the university. And the university also has this orientation program, and you'll get a lot of orientation. But the fact of the matter is, you don't get dropped off at a train station and have to figure out what to do on your own. And so I think that's a positive. Beyond the classroom, from an academic perspective, this program includes organized and informative site visits. I should have mentioned that Strasbourg, why the EU emphasis and why is it so international? It's, well, one Strasbourg, as evidenced by the names, it's kind of the crossroads of Europe. Okay, it's in the middle of Europe, but Strasbourg is the home of the European Parliament, as well as a couple of other EU institutions. In fact, the Chateau's located, probably a half a mile from all these EU institutions. Of course, the EU is based in Brussels, but a major part of it is in Strasbourg. Luxembourg has the European Court of Rights. Frankfurt has the European Central Bank. And then Brussels, of course, has all the administrative entities. So part of the program and part of the class on the EU and European affairs, the INTS 360 class, built into that class, and this is like class time, are organized visits to the EU sites in Strasbourg. The middle of the semester, you have a week break. Everybody goes up to Brussels and to Luxembourg for a couple of nights, which is covered by your program costs, and you visit the EU institutions there. And then there's a separate trip to Frankfurt to see the European Central Bank. So, but this is all integrated into your classes. And if you're on your own, it's hard to visit these places on your own because there's a lot of security issues, stuff like that, and they prefer to do it in groups. And I should mention, they also give lectures. This isn't just walking around the buildings. You get officials from the EU to deliver lectures and so on. And it all counts towards your INTS 360 class. Now with INTS 361, which is that kind of cross-border cooperation class, and European identity, there are cultural visits. There are historic sites. You go to the to Verdun, the site of one of the worst battles in World War One, where basically the Germans and the French slaughtered each other. And there are huge memorials to this. And part of what you learn on the program is, this is a continent that's been scarred by World War One and World War Two. And so it's important to see a place like Verdun. There's another site of a small, relatively small German concentration camp that was in Alsace. And then there are other historic sites with, well, of course, right in the city, the center of Strasbourg is the whole center of the city. It's like an island, is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. There are all these half-timbered buildings, and it's just gorgeous. So that's part of the historic sites. You'll go to at least one winery, the Route de Vin, the wine route, and Alsace is world famous for its wine. You'll visit museums in Alsace, but in the German Rhineland, there's some wonderful museums, one in Frankfurt as well as up in Brussels and so on and so on. So part of this program is you have these site visits that they're a lot of fun, okay? And there are, we'd have to work with it, there are some internship and service learning opportunities. If you really wanted something like that, we can work with our partners at SEPA. So there is stuff beyond the classroom. And I like the program because these site visits are integrated into classes, and they're organized. And I did study abroad almost 50 years ago, and when it was pretty primitive. And I went to London, and I'm amazed. I've returned to London many times, decades later, but how much I didn't see. I mean, if you're just, you're a college student, you don't figure these things out. But you get a good guidebook first of all, but also recognize that the program will ensure that you kind of know where you are and what are the opportunities you see, and you'll get to see places that you probably wouldn't have gotten into before. Also beyond the classroom, as Amanda started to say, this is a great place for independent travel throughout Europe. Strasbourg is centrally located. It's halfway between Paris and Prague. It's roughly halfway between Amsterdam and northern Italy. There are, before I get to that, there are wonderful, easy day trips throughout Alsace and northeastern France, as well as the German Rhineland. Strasbourg itself, of course, is a city rich in history, dating back to the Middle Ages. Most of its history dating back to the founding of the Holy Roman Empire, which was Germany before it became Germany. For the first 800 years, it was just one of many German provinces. They spoke Alsatian there. Then Louis XIV conquered Alsace, started a major European war. So France held on to it for 150 years or so. And after the Franco-Prussian War, Alsace went to Germany. After World War I, Alsace went to France. World War II, Alsace went back to Germany. Now it's back to France. So there's a large history. If you go jogging or walking along the Rhine, you can see the defenses, the military defenses, part of the Maginot Line or extension of it, going back to World War II. But the other thing is there's a wonderful train network there, just a regional network, kind of light rail. And so you just get on a train, and you can go to the Black Forest, you can go to Colmar, which is kind of a small Strasbourg in the south of Alsace. You can go to Nancy in Lorraine, in the city in France. Be perfectly honest, I'm very lucky, thanks to Global Affairs and SEPA, to go to Strasbourg regularly. I go there to meet with our partners there and meet with the study abroad people or the international office people at Strasbourg. But one of the things is there's been a lot of opportunity to see the region, and it's just a great place. There's a lot of beautiful art and architecture and history and everything. But going back to the idea, on a European scale, there's high-speed rail service to major cities, north, south, east, west. You can get to Paris in I think 2 hours and 15 minutes now on these bullet trains, and just cuts across the countryside of France. It's easy to get up to Frankfurt or Amsterdam. The other thing, though, that students take advantage of is you can go further. There are nearby airports, Strasbourg Airport, and I think it's Stuttgart. They're serviced by low-cost airlines, you can fly to like Barcelona for like $50 round trip. You can, people go to Prague, people go over to England. It's even cheaper than the rail service. People go to Italy. There's a lot of opportunity there. Some weekends you'll have site visits and stuff like that. But a lot of weekends you're on your own, and you can fly out probably Thursday afternoon and come back Sunday evening. So a lot of people do travel, and it's just a great experience. And it's easier to travel there than it is here. Wonderful thing over there is everything's pedestrianized. There are bikes at the chateau if you like to bike into campus. But they also have good public travel network. And if you look at this map, I need to put the star here. But right there, along the French-German border, right there is Strasbourg. And there's Netherlands, there's Paris, there's Prague, Munich's right down here, Northern Italy, Florence, down, Milan, so on and so on. Barcelona's down here. So you really are in the middle of it, okay? And okay, the program expenses, I believe, Amanda or Megan, you were going to talk about that.
Yep, I can talk about that. So the program expenses, and this will be billed to your WVU STAR account, just like any other course that you sign up for. The program will be billed to your STAR account. So we'll kind of go on to what that means here in a second. But the program cost is $11,500. It is $11,500 for both in-state and out-of-state students. You can use WVU Promise, WVU scholarships, financial aid, anything that you use to pay for college now, it should apply to this. The Office of Global Affairs offers a specific scholarship for Strasbourg, and we are adamant, please apply. We have the students that go and they're not applying, and it's a very simple application. Basically, are you going to Strasbourg? And can you fill out a little application? For WVU residents, we give you $4,000 to kind of make that what an in-state student roughly would pay for housing, meals, and tuition. And then for out-of-state students, we give you about $250 or $2,500, sorry. And so that does lower that initial cost. And what I tell students is kind of look at your basic tuition, what you pay for transportation, everything you do in a semester in Morgantown. And this is a very cost-effective program if you see it that way. If you are an Eberly College student, so they have the Eberly Academic Enrichment Grant. It's around $1,500, $1,000 to $1,500, which could cover your flights and visa costs. If you are in other colleges also have enrichment grants, but they're not as widely known to us. So just talk with your college to find out if they have any scholarships as well. But we do ask that you do apply to our scholarship, because like I said, all you really have to do is apply, and it's kind of an automatic guarantee that you'll get it. Is any questions on kind of that? Okay. Go ahead.
If I can just add, Amanda, it's if you're an out-of-state student, it's cheaper to go to WVU in Strasbourg than it is in Morgantown.
Yeah.
As far as I go. And Global Affairs has done a wonderful job of generating this income. So these scholarships are just for the Strasbourg students. And so you can count on this, you can plan on this. And, you know, I'm really grateful for this because, you know, the $4,000, yeah, that makes up the difference for the most part. And so I hope I didn't interrupt, Amanda.
No. And that's all I really have. The good thing about it being on your STAR account, like any other course, is you can use all your scholarships and financial aid, any loans and things like that. So just make sure you fill out your FAFSA form because that is the first step in all your financial aid.
Okay, great. Okay, Megan.
Alrighty, so to apply to this program, you just go to educationabroad.wvu.edu, pretty straightforward name. And then you would use our program search tool to search out the Strasbourg program. You can search France, you can search Strasbourg. It'll bring up the programs and you'll just select and apply for either IEP, which is the International Study Program, or EM, which is for business students. And there is no application fee on our website, so you just click apply now, select your term, and start working through the application. One of the requirements within that initial part of the application is an education abroad advising session with a coordinator. I do recommend that you schedule with me. There are 2 coordinators in our office, but I am the one who handles most of the Strasbourg stuff. So you can either just email me and search my name, or through our website, you should be able to click schedule an appointment and then select me from there. All right. All right, and then our social media, I definitely recommend following us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. We post updates about different activities that students are doing. Right now we have a student in Germany and she got to take over our Instagram and I think our Facebook. So there was like a day in the life of a WVU student abroad. So those are a few neat things that you can find through our social media. And then of course, we're here in Puritan House on the downtown campus, and you're welcome to email us or reach out to us in any way that's best for you. Alrighty, I think that's the end of our PowerPoint.
Okay,
Yeah.
if I can just share one other thing. Let me see if I can do this. No, share. There is our partners. This is their website, okay? And the web address is there. If you have a problem with that, you can send me an email. I can send you the link. My email address is simply jhagan, JHAGAN, @wvu.edu. I'm in the political science department. But anyway, this website, we don't need to go through it, but it talks about the chateau. It talks about student life. So here's there's the chateau. Talks about the academics. A lot of those academics we at WVU designed. So it corresponds to what I've gone over. There are a lot of resources. So if you want to explore the program further, there is this website. Again, it's targeted to multiple universities, but we were the first university, and WVU set this up so it's consistent to what we talked about. So, okay, I'm going to stop sharing at that point. Are there any questions for any of us?
I have a question for you, Dr. Hagan.
Okay.
How do students get from the Chateau to the University of Strasbourg? Do you know how long that takes?
Good point. There's a bus that's a little bit closer, and then there's a tram, and it's not a trolley car, but it's a tram. They're really modern. They're very light rail. They ride right along the ground. It's not like taking a subway. And I believe they opened up a new stop closer to the chateau. and the tram takes you right into town, within 10 minutes or something like that. The other thing you do is you can take a bus, although provided in the program is a bus pass and a tram pass, so all your transportation around Strasbourg is covered. The trams are really nice. They're very modern, and very clean, and above ground, beautiful ride into the city. You can walk it if you want. At the end of the day, you can walk home, and or the chateau will rent you a bike for the semester, and you can bike in there. And all the streets, they have bike paths right in the center of town.
I was wondering, Dr. Eastup kind of mentioned in class that that this trip might go next spring, even with COVID. Is it looking like a good possibility?
Yeah, so I can take that one. Our current policy is we don't send students to level 4 or higher on travel advisories for CDC and State Department. France just went down to a level 3. So we're super excited about it. That is a good question as well. So the Chateau and SEPA and possibly the University of Strasbourg, you have to have a vaccine to go. So you have to be fully vaccinated before you go to stay at the Chateau. So that is a requirement for the program. And then I spoke to the owner of the Chateau, and she said a lot of places over there. So like if you're going to say a concert venue or even like a little bar that has live music, they require some sort of vaccine proof. So either your card or a digital pass to get through. So it is looking very good for spring. Of course, if something would change, you would not be billed. You would not be out of anything except your flight. So we do ask, wait till later to buy a flight and possibly get insurance on that if you so choose.
Okay, because I was debating, I don't know if this trip runs in the fall as well as the spring, but I was debating waiting until the fall to do this just because of COVID right now.
Yeah, it also runs in the fall. So if you're more comfortable going in the fall, a lot of people don't like to go to fall because they like to be here for football. But if that's not, your thing, you also get the plus of the Strasbourg Christmas market in the fall. So that's kind of nice.
So thank you. That was pretty much what I had to ask.
But Amanda, don't you think that if Jordan, if you were interested in going this spring, you could go through the application process, and then say in December there's another spike, then you wouldn't be penalized and kind of roll it over to next fall.
Yes, we would just roll that over for you.
Yeah. But Amanda's point about buying a plane ticket, I think you'd fly over, like January 5th or something like that. And so you can get that several weeks in advance. The price should still be pretty good. But that Everly money, that's how you pay for your plane ticket.